You're with Julian on the Brown Notes and the tragedy of Labour, the Labour Party, and this applies equally to the Labour Party in the UK and to the Labour Party in Australia. Now, both parties are riding high in the polls and are on course maybe to win an election. You would think I would be happy about this, but I'm really quite sad. The reason is this. There is a push by virtually all media is right-wing and neoliberal. Even the ones that say that they're lefties are not, really, when it comes down to it. You only have to look at the Guardian newspaper, probably the most left-wing prominent newspaper. They went after Jeremy Corbyn and they went after Bernie Sanders, and they promote American foreign policy agendas. And when it comes down to the critical things, so virtually everyone is on the same page, which is let's make sure that no real Labour Party get in. And in America, for many years, it was make sure that no real Democrats get in. So we water down the left side of politics until they're a light, pleasant version of the right-wing parties. In this country, the Liberal Party; in the UK, the Conservative Party. Let's make them as close as possible so they don't enact any economic policies that will hurt us. And then the machine gets into overdrive, which is every single time a leftist loses an election, it's all about the public won't vote for somebody that's so left. Yet when the right-leaning versions of those Labour parties lose elections, it is never mentioned that it is because of where they stood on the political spectrum. So what we've had in the UK is Jeremy Corbyn come in, energise the UK like Bernie Sanders did in America, do brilliantly against Theresa May with virtually no media support, and even the leftist Guardian newspaper running a 3-year campaign to tear him down. He had to, even though he was so wildly popular in his party, they forced a vote against him, and he won by a landslide, and he fought the Brexit election, which no man could have won. The Brexit gang were united under one issue, which is we want Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn might possibly not be Brexit, and Boris Johnson was king of Brexit. No one would have ever won that election. And as soon as that election finished, the media went into overdrive to remove Jeremy Corbyn. The membership of the Labour Party, the public rank and file, never got a choice. If they had held a vote, he would have still won. But we ended up with Sir Keir Starmer as head of Labour. And the fact that someone with a knighthood is leading the Labour Party is absolutely disgusting to me. Why? How is someone that got into that position of entitlement the leader of the Labour Party? So what happened in the UK is that people will say that Jeremy Corbyn was too leftist and too socialist. Now, they ignore the fact that Tony Blair came in and they will say, Tony Blair won elections, he was great, he was nearly a Tory. That's what the public want. But what really happened is Tony Blair won 2 elections that the predecessor John Smith, who died while leader of Labour, was going to win anyway, because the public of the UK was so pissed off at the Conservative Party after 18 years. They descended into a Caligula-like pit of absolutely appalling corruption and incompetence. Labour were guaranteed to win those 2 elections. Tony Blair won them. His 3rd election, he lost 60 seats. Every single Blairite since has lost an election. No one ever says it was Tony Blair who lost those elections or his supporters that lost those elections, but they lost elections all the way through up until Jeremy Corbyn came in and once again energised Labour. So no one ever says for 15 years they were losing elections, or because they were too right-wing or too neoliberal or too close to the Tories. As soon as Jeremy Corbyn comes in, he does brilliantly. Everyone pretends he didn't. He is up against Boris Johnson in the Brexit election and he loses. And everyone says it's because he's too left-wing. Now, the same thing, nearly the same thing has happened in Australia. Like in the UK, the Liberal Party here have burnt through leader after leader after leader. We've had David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson will probably be gone this week in the UK. We've had Tony Abbott, we've had Malcolm Turnbull, we've had ScoMo, who will probably be gone unless he can get an election before May. So we've had exactly the same thing, wild incompetence from right-wing populists in power, where the media has fended off in Australia Bill Shorten's attempt to actually address the economic issues in this country, franking credits, negative gearing, tax breaks to the wealthy. They united against him to ensure that we ended up with the most incompetent, offensive goon in Australian history leading the country, and blamed it all on the fact that Bill Shorten was playing identity politics. No, it wasn't. It was a unified media. We have the most concentrated media ownership in the developed world, who all made it about franking credits. We have billions spent in marginal seats in the most wildly corrupt ways possible. And we've got people like Clive Palmer running disinformation campaigns in Queensland. He was up against it, but the reason he lost was all about him being too left-wing. So my problem here is this. We've now got a situation in the UK with Sir Keir Starmer. He came in after Jeremy Corbyn and lost. He did terribly at elections. He was rubbish. The public don't like him, nothing. He is the Tony Blair of the modern Labour Party. But now, because Boris Johnson cannot keep out of the news for more than 3 days at a time, and because the Brexit gang have got Brexit the only thing that they cared about, he will likely beat Boris Johnson. And you might think I'd be happy because Labour got in, but what I'm really unhappy about is for the next 10 years, they will say, see, we told you. They won't vote for a left-winger. They voted for a Tony Blair-like person. They aren't voting for Keir Starmer. They're voting against the Conservative Party. The only reason the Conservative Party won the last election is because they stood for Brexit. So the unified Brexit gang across both Labour and the Conservative Party just wanted to get that over the line. Now they've got it. They don't care as much. He would have lost had it not been for Brexit. So now we get Keir Starmer waltzing in despite having absolutely no impact on the public himself, and the media will unify behind him and say, look, Jeremy Corbyn failed because he was a leftist. Keir Starmer is a Tony Blair-like centrist, and for the next decade we will have people crowing from the right-wing media that the only Labour candidates can get elected are the ones that are these neoliberal acolytes of Tony Blair. In Australia, we've got exactly the same thing. Anthony Albanese came in for Bill Shorten, stood for nothing, tried to stand as close to the left of Scott Morrison as possible, and made no impact on the polls. Scott Morrison was waltzing him to an election win. And then everything went to hell in a handbasket. We had all of the sexism scandals against the Liberal Party. We had the bushfire crisis, and we've had COVID. And Scott Morrison in the papers every day being an incompetent idiot. So in our country, Anthony Albanese may win the election, and all these people on the right in the news media will say, oh, look, they wouldn't vote for Bill Shorten because he's a leftist. They voted for Anthony Albanese because they loved his centrist neoliberal economic policies. No, they didn't. They didn't like him a year and a half ago at all. What's happened is they really, really hate the Liberal Party. So now they're going to vote them in, and then this country will have exactly the same thing in the UK. These unified business and media interests try and work as hard as possible so that we never get any real change in politics. So that when we do get our small chances with Labour governments, we neuter them as much as possible. How neutered was the tenure of Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard? They make sure they can't do anything. They made sure that Obama couldn't do anything. He did nothing, next to nothing. They give you a few social issues, an apology here or there. So it galls me that that as soon as Keir Starmer wins the election, they'll be saying it's because of him. People didn't vote for him. They voted against Boris Johnson. They voted against the unbelievable, mind-blowing corruption of the Conservative Party. It has nothing to do with Jeremy Corbyn being too left and Keir Starmer being an acolyte of Tony Blair. Tony Blair waltzed into his election wins, and so will Keir Starmer, and so will Anthony Albanese. And our media will tell everyone, you won't vote for leftist policies, will you? They're gaslighting you.